Norman Bates, the monster behind the mirror. In the shadowy world of psychological horror, few names strike fear and fascination like Norman Bates. He is the boy next door with a twisted soul, the tragic villain trapped by his past, and the infamous proprietor of the Bates Motel. First introduced in Robert Bloch's 1959 novel Psycho and immortalized by Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film, Norman Bates has become one of the most chilling characters in cinematic history. He is not a monster born, but one made, shaped by obsession, trauma, and madness. Norman Bates was born to Norma Bates, a controlling, emotionally abusive mother. After his father died when Norman was young, he was raised in near-total isolation by Norma. She taught him that all sex was sinful, that women were dangerous, and that the world was untrustworthy. Her possessive parenting smothered Norman's identity and instilled deep emotional scars. As Norman reached adolescence, his dependency on his mother became unhealthy and obsessive. When Norma eventually found a romantic partner and planned to remarry, Norman, in a fit of jealousy and fear of abandonment, poisoned both his mother and her lover. Unable to cope with what he had done, Norman developed dissociative identity disorder, DID. He resurrected his mother in his mind, creating a second identity that would live on in him. Norman preserved her corpse and began speaking in her voice, dressing in her clothes, and living under the illusion that Norma was still alive. From that moment on, Norman Bates was no longer one person, but two. Norman kept up the appearance of a shy, polite man running the Bates Motel, a small business off the beaten path. Travelers occasionally stopped by, some never left. Norman, under the influence of the mother personality, would murder those he perceived as a threat to their relationship or moral purity, especially attractive women who stirred his repressed sexual urges. One of the most infamous incidents occurred when Marion Crane, a woman on the run after stealing money, checked into the motel. In one of the most iconic scenes in horror history, she was murdered in the shower by the mother persona, though Norman later appeared to clean up the crime, claiming ignorance. As investigations continued and bodies piled up, the truth slowly unraveled. Norman Bates and his mother were one and the same. Norman's core personality is gentle, soft-spoken, and socially awkward. He is a tragic figure, kind-hearted on the surface, yet completely dominated by the darker, possessive mother identity within him. He shows signs of dissociative identity disorder, DID, two distinct personalities, Norman and mother, who alternate control, paranoia and delusion. He often speaks to himself in his mother's voice and hallucinates conversations with her. Repressed sexuality, he suffers guilt and rage over sexual feelings, triggered by his mother's teachings. The mother personality is cold, violent, and domineering, acting as the judge, jury, and executioner of Norman's desires. Powers and abilities. While Norman Bates has no supernatural powers, his abilities lie in his psychological complexity and manipulative skills. Psychological manipulation. Norman is capable of appearing completely innocent, charming, and harmless. This makes him dangerously deceptive, as he can lure victims into a false sense of security before mother takes over. Split identity deception. The most terrifying aspect of Norman is his ability to switch identities seamlessly. Often, even he doesn't realize that mother has committed the crimes. He covers her tracks, moves her body, and believes he is protecting her. Stealth and murder. Though not physically imposing, Norman is cunning. As mother, he uses stealth and knives to murder his victims, often catching them at their most vulnerable, especially in the privacy of their rooms or showers. Appearances across media. Psycho, 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, this film made Norman Bates a household name. Portrayed by Anthony Perkins, Norman's quiet madness shocked the world. Psycho sequels, 1983 to 1990, Norman tries to rehabilitate but continues to struggle with the mother persona. Bates Motel, TV series, 2013 to 2017, a modern prequel starring Freddie Highmore, exploring Norman's teenage years, deepening the relationship with his mother, and showing his slow descent into madness. Norman's life is defined by a tragic spiral. After murdering his mother, he becomes both caretaker and puppet of her memory. Throughout the Psycho series and adaptations, he attempts to suppress the mother personality, undergo treatment, and even seek redemption. But the illusion of mother always returns, stronger, crueler, and more controlling. In the end, Norman is either incarcerated or killed, depending on the version. But the real horror lies in the idea that anyone could become like him, if broken early enough and left in the dark long enough. Norman Bates is not the kind of villain that roars, he whispers. He doesn't wear a mask, he wears a smile. Behind his nervous grin lies a shattered psyche, a boy who never escaped his mother's grip, and a man at war with his own mind. He represents the quiet terror of repressed trauma, the horror of unchecked madness, and the consequences of love twisted into possession. Norman Bates is not just a killer, he is a mirror, reflecting what happens when identity fractures and innocence is poisoned. So next time you check into a lonely roadside motel, you might want to ask, is it just you, or is your mother home too? If this story intrigued you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let Norman Bates' chilling tale remind us that sometimes, the scariest monsters live within.